There are some individuals who live among us, hidden in plain sight, who harbor unspeakable darkness. They appear charming, successful, and kind, yet beneath that polished surface lurks a monster capable of horrific deeds. This is the story of one such man, a predator who targeted women, shattering lives and destroying families. His crimes left a nation in shock, and his legacy remains a terrifying reminder of how evil can walk among us without being detected. It began quietly. In a bustling city where life moved fast and people barely stopped to notice each other, women started disappearing. At first, it didn't raise alarms. Each case seemed isolated, an unfortunate tragedy here, an unexplained vanishing there. Some of the missing women were assumed to have run away from their lives. Others were thought to have fallen into dangerous circumstances of their own making. But as the disappearances continued, a pattern began to emerge. These women weren't just vanishing, they were being hunted. At the center of it all was a man whose outward appearance seemed perfectly normal, even respectable. He was educated, successful, and socially charming, a man whose intelligence and wit attracted people to him. His career had taken him to positions of influence, and in many ways he was seen as a model of success. But behind this carefully constructed image lay a mind consumed by darkness, a mind that viewed women not as individuals, but as objects to be controlled and dominated. Born into a family of wealth and privilege, his childhood appeared, on the surface, to be one of comfort and opportunity. But behind closed doors, his upbringing was marred by emotional neglect and toxic relationships. His parents, locked in a dysfunctional and abusive marriage, set an early example of control and manipulation. From a young age, he witnessed how power was wielded over others, and this sowed the seeds of his later obsession with dominance. As a young man, he was able to hide the darkness within. His intelligence and charm masked the growing anger and resentment he felt toward women. He viewed them as inferior, seeing their trust and affection as weaknesses to exploit. He had no empathy, no emotional connection, only a need to control, to own, and to destroy. He began his twisted campaign by preying on women who were vulnerable, those looking for companionship, those who had been through hard times, and those who trusted too easily. With each victim, he refined his methods, learning how to manipulate and control with chilling precision. He would lure these women into his life, making them feel special, loved, and safe. But once they were under his influence, the mask would slip, revealing the true predator beneath. His cruelty didn't begin with violence. First, he exerted control over every aspect of their lives, where they went, who they saw, how they lived. He isolated them from friends and family, breaking down their confidence and sense of self-worth. Slowly, he turned their worlds into prisons, and by the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. For many of his victims, the abuse escalated to violence. He would strike when they were most vulnerable, using emotional and physical abuse to keep them submissive. But his ultimate goal wasn't just control, it was complete annihilation. He had no intention of letting these women go. When their usefulness as objects of his control ended, he took their lives with chilling coldness, discarding them as though they were nothing. For years, the authorities remained unaware of the connection between the missing women. Each case was treated as an isolated incident, a runaway here, a tragic disappearance there. It wasn't until one woman, through sheer determination and strength, managed to escape that the terrible truth began to unravel. She had been one of his victims, lured into his web by his charm and promises of a better life. At first, he treated her like a queen, showering her with affection and attention. But it wasn't long before his darker side emerged. He became possessive, then controlling, and finally violent. The woman, sensing the growing danger, began planning her escape. She waited for the right moment, and when it came, she ran. Her escape wasn't easy, but she knew it was the only way to survive. When she made it to the authorities, the story she told was beyond their worst fears. She described a man who had carefully built a double life, one in which he appeared successful and respectable, and another in which he was a cold-blooded killer. Her testimony led investigators to his home, where they discovered a horrifying collection of evidence, belongings from multiple victims, personal items that had been kept as trophies, and journals detailing the sick pleasure he derived from his actions. The investigation revealed that this man had been operating in the shadows for years, preying on countless women, all while maintaining the illusion of normalcy. He had perfected his techniques, using psychological manipulation, charm, and violence to break his victims before ultimately ending their lives. As investigators dug deeper into his past, they began to understand the full scope of his crimes. He had targeted women from different walks of life, choosing them for their vulnerability, their trust, and their inability to see him for what he truly was. Each victim had trusted him, believing his promises of love and protection, only to be met with cruelty and death. When the case finally went to trial, the evidence was overwhelming. The man, once considered a pillar of society, was revealed as a monster who had preyed on women for years. His defense team tried to argue that his mental health issues played a role in his actions, pointing to his upbringing and his personality disorders as factors that contributed to his behavior. He was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and psychopathy, conditions that made him incapable of feeling empathy or remorse. But the jury saw through these excuses. They recognized that while his mental health issues might have contributed to his cruelty, his actions were deliberate, calculated, and evil. He had chosen his path, and for that, he would face the full weight of the law. The trial was a harrowing experience for the families of his victims. They listened in horror as the details of their loved ones' final moments were revealed, struggling to understand how someone could commit such atrocities. The man showed no remorse throughout the proceedings, his cold, detached demeanor only reinforcing the sense that he was beyond redemption. In the end, he was convicted of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison. For the families, justice had been served, but the wounds left by his crimes would never fully heal. The lives he had destroyed, the futures he had stolen, could never be returned. This story is a sobering reminder of how evil can hide behind the most charming of faces, and how predators often blend seamlessly into the world around us. This man used his intelligence and charm to manipulate and control his victims, but beneath that surface was nothing but darkness. His story is a warning to us all. Evil can sometimes be hiding in plain sight. Today, we remember the victims of his heinous crimes. They were women with hopes, dreams, and futures, cruelly taken from their loved ones by a man who sought only to destroy. Their voices were silenced, but their memories remain, a testament to their strength and the love they left behind.